This, as President Kenyatta maintains, it's not time for campaign, but rather for service delivery. But who heard the president speak? And this week, specifically this month, we began on a sad note with the death of Robert William Collymore. My guests will have time to remember him in their own way. And last week, we ended on a bad note. Someone wants the deputy president eliminated. But so many sentiments around these claims that we are unable to discern the truth from lies. That's why the outcome of this is with the DCI, and it will be very important to us. On Time Bar, we take you back to one of the greatest mergers in the recent history. But first, it's my take tonight. The sensational claims about a plot to assassinate Deputy President William Ruto dominated the political discourse in the past week, climaxing with the summoning of 3 cabinet secretaries to write statements at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Deputy President is the second in command after the president, and any threat to his life is extremely sensitive and requires utmost attention. But the claims have been interrogated within the context of the prevailing sibling rivalry in the ruling Jubilee party and in relation to President Kenyatta's succession in 2022. After the bonhomie within the Jubilee coalition, what follows the 2013 election win, things have taken a drastic turn after the 2017 polls, which was again won by the Jubilee side, which had transformed itself into a party. Now, 2 camps within the diametric opposed views have emerged in Jubilee. That's the Tanga team that coalesces around the deputy president, and the Kieleweke team that has roots, or rather coalesced around President Kenyatta. Now, despite repeat denial about this division, there is no masking the camps within Jubilee, which is identifying by the day. Linked to this is ethnic and regional alignment. Specifically, claims that top government officials from Mount Kenya region have been meeting and plotting to eliminate the deputy president, which is quite grave, which is why it must be thoroughly investigated. It risks fomenting ethnic hostilities at the cabinet level. It creates paralysis. It's incomprehensible how the DP will relate with the other CSs and principal secretaries accused of scheming against him. Now, cabinet operates on the principle of collective responsibility, and that presupposes unity of purpose in the cabinet, which is untenable in the current environment. Now, since we have seen the CSS throwing gabs and babs at the DP, and the situation may even get worse unless the matter is quickly resolved. Moreover, there is serious split within the party and its parliamentary teams. Party members no longer pull in one direction. Accusations and counter-accusations are playing all over, and we see them every single day. What obtains is party indiscipline. Not that parties should not allow dissent. That is healthy for democracy within the parties. But what is happening, in our opinion, is unruliness. Without harmony in cabinet and the ruling party, the government is at serious risk of crumbling. It cannot deliver on its development programs. Worse, for our case, the country is grappling with corruption, and fighting it requires singular commitment from the government. Now, that government, which cannot succeed within a divided house and a divided cabinet. Now, Kenya has a long history of unresolved political assassinations. The claims are bad for the government and the country. It is incumbent upon President Kenyatta to tackle the discontentment within the cabinet and the party. He must bring to an end the endless bickering within the cabinet and the party. Reckless and baseless statements must stop. And tonight, we borrow the words of Will Rogers. He's a stage actor and a newspaper columnist. Everything is changing. People are taking their comedians seriously, and the politicians as a joke. My guest tonight, Edwin Sifuna. Gathoni wa Mushomba was supposed to be here. Bashi is not here. And Barack Muluka is here. And of course, we have Mwambu Mabonga. My name is Ken Mijungu. Welcome to our program tonight. Join the conversation. The hashtag, as always, is Sidebar. At NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu, Sidebar is completing the puzzle tonight for you.
Mimi nashangaa, kwani kazi ya deputy president ni gani?
Hapana, ende tu kukanisha umebeba pesa kwa gunia. ati unasaidia Mungu kwa kanisa. Nenda pale, sema ukweli, anza kwa kutubu dhambi zako.
Wale ambao wamezoea kugandamiza wa Kenya wanapinga michango kanisani na kwa wananchi wanyonge. Mimi nataka niwaeleze, they will not succeed.
Watu wa Embu wanasema Mheshimiwa Uhuru akitoka akimaliza yake 2022, Mheshimiwa Ruto aingie kwa play.
Sisi tunataka tu kura ifanyike kwa haki na usawa. Hatutaki endorsement.
A good place to begin our discussion tonight. Welcome, gentlemen. We were supposed to have a lady, but she's not here. I'll go straight to the SG for ODM, and congratulations on your election as at CMD. Straight after the Deputy President spoke, you answered him. Like always, you always answer when the Deputy President speaks. But this one is the first time that he was very explicit about his role and function. And he made it clear he will not be confined in the office. And you went straight to answer him on that.
First of all, I want to bring to your attention that the constitution of ODM places upon every member of a party a responsibility to combat negative propaganda that is detrimental to the interests of the party. The word used in our constitution under Article 5 is combat, not respond to, not deal with, combat. So we will deal with propaganda in the terms with which our constitution has expressed itself. And as a Secretary General of a party, I have the greatest responsibility to actually do that combating. So we have suffered as a party before because we did not combat propaganda that was directed our way, specifically from the character of William Ruto. You know that we suffered greatly in the elections in 2013 because of the propaganda around the Mao issue. And it is my stated mission that for as long as I'm the Secretary General of the party, I will undertake that duty without fear or favor, because that is what the members of the party expect from me. So we have to set the record straight every time that we encounter such propaganda. There are a lot of things that were in the Deputy President's statement, and you can see the bitterness that is coming out, because for us we are a bit surprised, Ken. We have heeded the call of our captain, Honorable Raila Odinga, to cease fire with Jubilee. It's not as if we do not have capacity to return the fire that is being directed at us. Just because we've put down our weapons doesn't mean we have forgotten how to use them. And even when the president was in Kisumu, James Orengo made the point that really for us, we are standing behind our leader. He has told us to cease fire. We cannot even, we cannot throw a stone back. We cannot even look at a stone, because Raila will tell you to stand down. But at the same time, we are seeing salvos coming from the other side, because somehow, because of the indiscipline on the other side, they have refused to heed the call of the president that really, at this particular point in time, we would like to bring the nation together. We calm down all the fiery rhetoric. You remember the president had even apologized for some of the language that was used during the campaigns. We accepted that apology. We also apologized for some of the things that we said. I personally apologize for my statements in the media during the campaigns and in public during the campaigns, and on behalf of other young leaders who are hot bloods within the party. So we thought that we were starting on a new footing. And if you look at the conduct of the party so far, we have heeded the call. But we are surprised that there are elements within Jubilee who do not have respect enough for their captain and their leader, the party leader, to be able to respect his director.
But that's not upon you to judge, because you are engaged with ODM. Why would you think Jubilee are not respecting the
Ken, if we agree in this studio that we are not going to throw the liquids in our cups at each other, then really I am in a position to judge when you are throwing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And identify it.
Because I'm the target of
why can't you limit it to what goes to ODM? So
this is what we are saying, because we know that the language and the rhetoric was directed at the party leader of ODM. He didn't have to mention him by name, but he described him. And we know his problem with the party leader is that he believes that the party leader owes him the presidency. And this coming hot on the heels of some of the things we've been discussing here, there is an attempt to run away from that sensational claim that somebody is after his life, and yet he has refused.
I'm going to talk about that.
We have to put all these things in context, interrogate every single thing that he says. When he says, for instance, that we are prone to making allegations of corruption on everything. When we sounded the alarm on, for instance, the Eurobond, The Auditor General himself in his report said he was unable to trace a single project where this money was utilized. On NYS, I don't need to say anything. You know about the fake fertilizer. You know about the Northern Collector Tunnel and all the issues that were raised on that particular project.
Okay.
So it's not just about us raising these issues so that we stall projects. On the contrary, we would like to shine light on these contracts so that they are actually implemented and they don't end up like Kimwarer and Aror.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Mabonga, please find for me justification in what the Deputy President said on over the weekend. It was yesterday, not even over the weekend, regarding his role. He says he'll not remain in office and do his duty as expected in the office. He'll get out in the field and that is hand. Find for me justification with that, because there is the notion that there's no politics that should be going on. But this is what happens, and I've seen in one of the political rallies.
Well, I don't know whether those ones are called political rallies, but every time I accompany the Deputy President, we are doing development. And in fact, he has been in my constituents more than once. And every time he comes, there is specific assignment that he's doing. The other day, we were doing fundraising for the women. He was there last time when we were doing fundraising for the youth. So, and the other time he came when he was actually handing over the school bus to one of the schools that he had promised. So at times when he comes, he is specifically on the national duty as the Deputy President, not necessarily a political rally. I've never organized a political rally for him. And secondly, I've just listened to some of the sentiments he made yesterday. I wanted to know specifically what is this propaganda that my colleague here is alleging to, because the deputy was talking of the fundraising, people want to stop fundraising, and actually was responding to some sentiments that were made against him, that carrying money in the bags and all that, such like things. What I want to say, Ken, here is that, you know, we can't run away that there is corruption in this country. And secondly, we cannot deny the fact that there are at least some achievement from the side of the government. But what we need to do, people can abuse anything in this country if you don't know. Let me ask a question to my panelists here. Let's assume today that malaria and malaria drugs, of course, we take them to treat malaria. And then we say there are people abusing malaria drugs. So the best way to do it is to stop people from taking malaria drugs, or there are other remedies that we need to deal with. We are not denying that fact. He was responding specifically to an issue that had been raised by a certain leader.
All right, he was responding to the issues, and Sifuna responded obviously after that. But let me speak to Barack. Barack, listening to the ceasefire call, you know, does it mean they have abdicated their role and now the family behind Jubilee?
I do not want to look at it within that prism. I want to look at it from the context that there was a handshake. And to try to deconstruct the handshake, particularly see it in the context of what President Uhuru Kenyatta said during the National Prayer Day, that I could give you a few more. You remember the preacher said that he wondered whether Kenya could lend the United Kingdom a prime minister. And Deputy President William Ruto said, yes, we have a retired one here whom we could give you. And President Uhuru Kenyatta said that I could give you a few more other people so that I could have peace for the next 3 years. And when we talk about the handshake, I think that is the context within which we should try to deconstruct and understand it. That we have tended to understand the handshake as meaning that there was now going to be a ceasefire in the streets, in the estates, and in the villages where Kenyans had been engaging each other, and which is true that that was happening. But I think that President Kenyatta, in a sense, saw what was coming. And he thought that he needed to be able to carry on peacefully. And peacefully in the sense that the handshake has helped him to combat the domestic tsunami. Because what we are seeing today, and which is being externalized, is a Jubilee domestic affair which they have failed to manage. And having failed to manage that domestic affair, they are externalizing it. At least a part of Jubilee is externalizing it and looking for scapegoats outside. These blows which Deputy President William Ruto is throwing around rather liberally at the ODM leader are actually proxy blows. They are blows that are intended for President Uhuru Kenyatta. And because he cannot pluck enough courage to throw them at him squarely, he throws them at the easiest punching bag in the way, and that easiest punching bag is the ODM leader. But basically, if you listen to him, if you deconstruct these things, William Ruto is talking to Uhuru Kenyatta, and he's talking like someone who is in panic because he has an excessive appetite for political power, to the extent that he does not even seem to recognize that even today, as he sits, he wields some political power which he could exercise in a decent and acceptable manner. And so, like Ahab, the whaler in Herman Melville's book, Moby Dick, he cannot recognize any other whale in the waters. There's a specific white whale that he must catch. And so he forgets about that and he must trouble the waters. Okay. So this is a domestic thing which is being externalized, which is being made a national thing that it is not.
But Sifuna just mentioned specifically that the jobs are meant for the ODM leader. I don't know how you relate it and deconstruct now you think it's meant to President Uhuru Kenyatta.
In the sense that he's the easy punching bag. You know, when you cannot hit at the target, when you are afraid, then you hit at the next fellow. So as he hits him, in terms of that he wants to provoke somebody, he hits at the ODM leader.
Okay.
But the person that he has in mind is his party leader, whom only a few days ago he told to call for a Jubilee party meeting to discuss corruption, to discuss the 2022, to discuss Jubilee internal wrangling, and to discuss the handshake.
Okay, but how do they discuss internal wrangling? They've never admitted to the existence of internal wrangling. But having accompanied the Deputy President, and I know you had questions for Honorable Sifuna, especially on propaganda that he said, right? Listening to him, you work with the Deputy President and you share in the ideology. Are they meant for the ODM leader, or he's just shadowboxing, he's looking for reasons?
Ken, I don't want us to get to a position of just scratching the surface. I was very attentive when I listened to the Deputy President. And Deputy President was very clear. He was actually responding to the allegations that had been made concerning the fundraising. These internal issues of Jubilee does not concern ODM. It doesn't concern my friend Barack Muruka here. Those are internal, and I've said it's internal. Neither me, because I'm not a Jubilee member. I've only association with the Deputy President, whom I believe in his ideology. But one thing I want to let you understand, you know, from what he has said, he has quoted something, and I wish just to remind him of a similar, a very innocent question was actually posed to Jesus Christ during his time. There are people in the society who believe that an enemy to your enemy is definitely your friend. And at one time, the Herodians and the Pharisees approached Jesus. If you ever read the Bible, it must be in Matthew 22. And then they asked Jesus, what can we do? Should we continue to pay taxes to Caesar? And then Jesus responded, because they were expecting him to say either yes or no. But this is what Jesus said. He said, give Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give God what belongs to God. Mm-hmm. Basically, what Jesus was implying, because the coin of Caesar had the image of Caesar, So when we go to church with the deputy president, we are not going because of money. First, we are going to worship as believers. That is the essence. But again, it does not restrict you to give what you have. At all, at all. It doesn't at all. It doesn't restrict you at all. And it's not the duty of the churchmen to investigate. We have the agencies of corruption here to do that kind of job.
Are you trying to say they should not be raising issues of corruption?
No, I'm not saying they should not be raising.
Okay.
But you should not say, now we should bar people not to give offerings, not to do fundraising. Fundraising is an African social spirit of assisting the least fortunate, at least to succeed.
Is that the message really you're sending out there?
Actually, that is the message. That is why we do that.
Yeah. Let me answer the question he asked on what the propaganda is. The propaganda, the heaviest propaganda in the deputy president's speech was on the causes of poverty in this country. People are impoverished by government policy. People are impoverished by bad manners of people stealing money that is meant for development to empower our people. If we dealt with corruption, for instance, and the bad policies that we have seen in previous governments, including this government for which he is a member, then probably our people would not be in the position that we are.
Okay.
We are making the point that you cannot make Harambes the basis of development in this country. It actually pains me when I hear a member of parliament saying, I was accompanying him to do development. That means you don't know why you were elected to parliament. You don't know the role of a member of parliament. You are ashamed to your people. You should go back to them for them to tell you what they send you to do in parliament. If indeed your job as a member of parliament is budget making, you allocate money for projects, and once the monies are budgeted for, you can go back to the people of Bumula and tell them, in this particular financial year, we were only allocated money for this road. For this other road, we will have to wait until the finances of the country get better. Mm-hmm. William Ruto is not the custodian of development in this country. So for you to lie to us, and one of the most interesting things is this thing called launching projects. I personally have a very serious gripe against it, because when we pay our taxes, we do it without hula baloo. Yeah, the day before was the final day for filing taxes. You didn't see Barack Muluka calling the media to cut tapes and to launch his taxes when he was paying. And development follows taxes. So once we have paid the taxes, we expect that the taxes will be used for development. Those Harambes are not developments. Essentially, by the way, Ken, those churches are supposed to be built by the fellowship itself, by the membership of those churches. But we have made sure that if we require 10 million to build a church in Manyulia, for instance, the people there are so poor that they can only raise 1,000 shillings. The whole congregation, when they go to give Sadaka, everybody is giving 10 shillings. But there is this guy who is so successful. If you need 10 million, you only call him. And he comes with 11 million na ya kutoa.
Okay.
And then because my brother Mwambu has gone into scripture, it is good that he knows scripture. Scripture is also clear on two things. Number one, which kind of offerings can be accepted by God. And God also looks at the conduct of a person giving the offering. That is why Cain's offerings were rejected. And number two, which hands can build a temple. It is there in black and white in the Bible. Okay. Which is why David, for all his friendship with God, was never allowed to build the temple in Jerusalem. But his son Solomon was allowed to build the temple.
Okay.
So it's not just anyone who can come and say...
I'd like to take you a little back, because your own party leader was saying in Kisumu with President Uhuru Kenyatta launching a project.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Yes. This is my personal view. I am saying that this issue of launching projects is unnecessary. And it has been abused in our political processes, because they create the impression that unless you come with Sifuna, there's not going to be any development. Okay. Unless Mijungu is present to cut the tape, it's not going to be development. And yet you have already paid taxes. Okay. If you are creating this environment where people are dependent on Harambes, we pay taxes, you steal all of it, and then you come and give us money to build a church. It doesn't make any sense.
I have something to say.
Okay, let me listen to Barack. Before we take a break.
Thank you. I think we need to contextualize this thing, and perhaps allow me to take you where I think I ought perhaps to even have started. Because when we talk about propaganda here, we have heard the expression, the Lord of poverty.
Yeah.
And I think it is important that we trace this expression to its roots in recent times. Because in 1989, we remember the American journalist and researcher Graham Hancock wrote a book titled Lords of poverty. And what was Graham Hancock talking about? He was talking about aid. He was talking about a certain class of people who call themselves the aristocracy of mercy, a benevolent aristocracy. People who are giving out handouts, charity in Africa, to Asia, to Latin America. They are working with impoverished communities. And they do so through donations, through Harambes. And he said that at that time, or rather observed at that time, close to 60 billion US dollars were going to that kind of charity. And yet they were not eradicating poverty anywhere. The people continue to be poor. The lords of poverty, as understood by Graham Hancock, are people who are happy that you remain poor, that society remains essentially poor, and that the poor people feel happy when this angel of benevolence comes from outside to give them droplets of charity, because he has a lot more which he cannot account for, whose source nobody knows of, and whose source he does not wish to be interrogated, but he will arrive from time to time with bundles of charity. And this person is the person that Graham Hancock has referred to as the Lord of Poverty. And we may want to flip that over and remind ourselves of another Lord who has been talked about by William Golding, a novelist, Nobel Prize winner, 1954, the famous novel Lord of the Flies. And the Lord of the Flies is actually the author and the father of all that is wicked and all that reeks. But there are flies that follow him wherever he goes because they benefit from that reek.
Okay.
And so he is the Lord of the flies.
Okay.
So if you look in the mirror carefully, you might find a convergence between the Lord of the Flies and the Lord of Poverty. And I think before we begin touting around some of these expressions, we should investigate them, and we should perhaps also look in the mirror.
A good place to take a break. A good place to take a break. let me absorb all that. When we come back,
school fees
for educating us, we're going to come back and talk about that a little more and deconstructing that Lord of Poverty. But even as we leave, let's listen to what some of the leaders had to say about what we're discussing.
Ni porojo kubwa sana kwa sababu I think this is a script, a scheme, and a plan, and a decoy to divert attention of Kenyans from the war on corruption.
Sasa hana mali pa kwenda, ni yeye alisema DCI hafai, DPP hafai, CEAC hafai, Matiang'i hafai. Sasa ataenda wapi sasa?
Right, welcome back to Sidebar. With me sitting here on Sidebar this evening is Edwin Sifuna, Secretary General for ODM Party. Gathoni Mushomba was supposed to be here. Her seat was somewhere here, but she's not here, and she really apologized quite late. And all right, Barak Muluka, who's the Secretary General for ANC, is also here, and Bumula, Member of Parliament, Mwambu Mabonga, is also here to talk about these issues. We left at the ODM leaders talking about diversionary tactics now employed by the Deputy President. And before then, I want to ask you, because it looks as though the Deputy President essentially is not working with the people he's supposed to be working with. I mean, we have seen the sentiments around the Deputy President. Everyone agrees that he is targeting the President indirectly through Raila Odinga.
Well, you know, I don't want to work with speculations, but first of all, I want to take you back a bit on something that was raised on fundraising, and my friend Barak has raised about the duo lots of flies,
yes,
and lots of poverty. Yes. And there was another sentiment about the high priest of corruption.
There's even the load of propaganda.
A load of propaganda. He's a good linguistic. He will take us through maybe
Linguist.
those ones later. He's a linguist. So he will take us through maybe, as my brother Sifuna has just said, that we will need some tuition so that he takes us through. But what I want to say is this. You know, what you need to know, that the government doesn't have provision for church development. That much you need to know, Sifuna.
I'm aware.
If you're aware of that, and I, Mabonga, or even the Deputy President, does not work in any church without invitation. And this notion of saying that if I do not agree with your association, then I'm wrong, that's a very wrong notion. There is power of association. I have seen you, my friend Sifuna, accompanying Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister, with even the President, launching projects.
Me?
Yes, I have seen you. Everywhere Raila has been, you have always been there. Whether he's doing projects, whether he's doing politics, you are always there. Of course, maybe as the Secretary General of the party. But again, if my association with the Deputy President, and then you want to demonize that, and that I don't think that is right, because you have also to have room for others' views, so that we work together and we see where the country is going.
Did he talk about your association with the Deputy President?
Of course, he said that I seem not to know what I'm doing. I was surprised.
As a member of Parliament,
the church doesn't have provision for development, and that's why whenever we are invited, we step in to assist.
But do you agree that if we empowered the community in a manner that they are able to contribute to building the churches?
Absolutely.
Without the need from
doubt about that.
So then why don't we go and do this from the ground? Why do we have to call? Yes.
But if it's not yet there yet, the government in place, as much as they are trying, yes, you walk around this country, you will see some development, especially in infrastructure. You will see some development. And we are not denying that there is corruption. But what we are saying is this. There is government agencies where actually people believe, even ODM as a party, I've seen them, they believe in the new DCI, they believe in the new anti-corruption body. They're doing their work. If there is anything that the Deputy President has done, let it be tackled before the DCI. Let it be tackled before the anti-corruption. They will take it up. That is all that we need. But you wake up today and you demonize everything that somebody is doing. It's not right. Okay. Now, when you ask me whether the Deputy President is working with the people he's supposed to work with, I sit with the Deputy President, my friend Ken. I talk to the Deputy President. He has never complained to me. And even in public, you've listened to him. He has never complained that he has issues with the President. So if somebody with a sound mind, he has not complained, why should I come here on this?
Does it need to complain if the President says no politicking, and we see the Deputy President in political rallies, whichever you want to call them? Is that not complaining about his boss or protesting about what the boss says?
Do you think President Uhuru is unable to address his deputy? Do you think so? Is that what you are alleging?
But he has done it several times.
No.
He's done it several times.
Do you think so?
No,
because
he has
if
done
there
it
is
several
any
times.
issue between them, definitely he will address it. I know President Uhuru, he will take it. He will take it on.
So you don't think there's a problem? You don't think there's a problem?
He is the same president who said William Ruto atapita humu akitangatanga akiangalia yale hatuchafanya.
Okay.
That statement was from the president.
So you don't think he has a problem with what the Deputy President is doing?
As far as I'm concerned,
yes,
I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
Sifuna, you know, me and Mwambu come from Bungoma. He knows the problems our people are in. He knows the impact of just one person in one family going to school and getting employed as a teacher. He knows the impact of just having one teacher in one village. He knows the way that that person, having gotten employment, raises that entire village up. What Mwambush would be telling the deputy president when they meet is to ask them, these 1 million jobs that you promised to create for the young people when you are re-elected, where are these jobs? Because if we get 1 million people employed, young people, and we only get 50 in Bumula constituency, he himself will see the burden, because even the calls that he receives for fundraisers, for funerals, for school fees, they will change, they will go down. Okay. So we want to have an honest discussion about whether really we are empowering our people to be able to do what is required to be done in their communities.
Okay.
Now, number two.
Let me fix your mic. Yes. Let me fix your mic. But let me speak to Barack. The same thing. Do you think he says that the deputy president is not undermining his boss by going against explicit expressions from the president? Do you agree?
You see, the president says, let us stop these campaigns. Let us focus on development. And the next morning, the deputy president is leading an entourage across the country. He's gallivanting from one corner of the country to the other with his troops in tow. And there's nothing that we are really seeing of all this apart from the vitriol that goes with it, apart from the tantrums such as we have had yesterday. We have seen certain projects being launched and relaunched and relaunched. Certain roads in Western Kenya, for example, have been relaunched about 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And you start wondering what is so important about this road that it must be launched 10 times by the same person. And the only memorable thing that lingers after that event is the sheer vitriol that went with it. To the extent that the president goes back to his backyard and he's constrained to tell the people there that I'm now getting fed up with these people whom I've been telling to stop these things. And I want to tell them that I'm not their little boy. I'm going to sort them out. So there is a clear rebellion, there's clear recalcitrance, that we have got people who refuse to admit that there's a challenge here. See, when URP and TNA got into this compact, they were kind of like people who got inside a room or a house, and they instructed the Masons to block all entries, all openings into and out of that thing. And so they are enclosed in this thing in which they are suffocating, in which they are sweating.
But they can't find a way out of it.
Which does not even have washrooms, yes. In which they are doing everything that needs to be done, and they cannot get out of it. Okay. So they have gotten to a point where they are now fighting with the walls. And through certain pinholes in those walls, they are now seeing other people outside, and they're saying that you are the ones who are responsible. And I think that if they are not careful, by the time they are done with this room, with this building in which they are, it will come down.
Crumbling. And the obvious question then is Jubilee split?
There is Jubilee, let's borrow from South Sudan. You know, South Sudan has got SPLM-IG and SPLM-IO. SPLM-IG is SPLM in government, and SPLM-IO is SPLM in opposition.
Okay.
And so there is Jubilee-IG around President Kenyatta, and there's Jubilee-IO around Deputy President William
Ruto. So Sifuna, ODM has been accused for splitting Jubilee, and this is not my sentiments. It's been expressed several times by leaders inside Jubilee. Mwingine alikuja hapa, you know, all that has been said.
It's a bit crazy, and we don't want to respond to the musings of crazy people because it has no.
But it's your work to respond to everything.
This is what I'm saying. Yes. I am saying that as a policy, ODM does not interfere with the internal workings of other political parties.
Okay.
And especially now that I am a vice chair of an inter-party dialogue group, really, I don't want to say...
And I voted for him.
And he voted for me, for which I'm eternally grateful. What I want to say is this, the problems are internal, and they should look at them. The foundations of Jubilee, what was it built on? You see, if you have no strong ideological foundations on which you build a party, then once those fissures begin, it will be very difficult to stick together. I want to say just one final thing on Harambes. You see, the reason why we raise all this furor, Ken, is very simple. Most of these people are public officers. We know how much they make. We know how much they receive every month. So it raises questions when we see them donating 10 times what they receive.
But then they say they don't do business.
Yes, I know. I'm coming to that point because I've heard it before.
Okay.
They say they're doing business, which is fine. The question we ask ourselves is, as Kenyans, is you have been put in charge of two enterprises. One a public enterprise, the other one a private enterprise. The public enterprise is doing so badly, we are retrenching people, we are unable to pay salaries, we are unable to pay suppliers. But this other enterprise, the private one, which you are in charge of, is somehow doing so well. And the only nexus is that your private enterprise started doing very well. Immediately you encountered public resources. We have to raise questions.
That's an assumption.
Number two, I want to go back to the Constitution on the duties of a deputy president. It says only two things. You are a principal assistant to the president, and number two, you undertake duties assigned to you by the president. Assigned to you by the president. Now, it will be very difficult for the deputy president to argue that the things he's doing, he's either assisting the president or has been sent by the president to do. Which is why sometimes you see he gets very uncomfortable. He sneaks in donations and claims that those donations are from the president. Yet we know very well that the president's stated position is that we are not going to go around the country now drumming support for people for 2022.
But the president has neither come out to deny the money is not...
But let me tell you, you know, one of the things I've discovered in these public spaces and positions, people are very limited in the latitude with which they can go to say certain things in public.
Okay.
But for me, who is here and who knows certain things, I can say these things.
Mheshimiwa Bobo, you mentioned earlier that if there is a case against the deputy president, even if it's corruption, he should, we should, or whoever has the case, should present this to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. We know there's a claim that CSs or some leaders from Central Kenya are plotting against the deputy president, and we haven't seen statements written on this.
Just before I respond to that, Ken, I don't want to leave some issues that have been raised hanging.
Okay.
Number one, because I will take a minute maybe just before I get to that. Number one, my friend just talked of young people in the village where I've been. I've had such a kind of life, my friend, and you know that. I know your background and you know mine very well. I have a scenario whereby when actually the leader of ODM declared some resistance to some product, there are people who lost jobs up to now. Nobody has even bothered to find out what exactly happened. Those are some of the things that we are talking about. There is a handshake that came in. But what I'm seeing here from my colleague here is trying to divide the presidency. That now the promises that were made with the Jubilee government is squarely upon the deputy president. When you're talking of the presidents, actually, you talk of the whole of it, the president himself included. When ODM are actually castigating the deputy president having not fulfilled this, I expected them to channel such a questions to president himself. He has just also again raised the issue of fundraising, the deputy president giving money on behalf of his boss. Actually, if the deputy president has given money, not in secret, in public, where everybody is watching in the national media, and your boss has not denied, what that does one affect you, my brother Sifuna? It doesn't affect you in any way, because the boss has not denied. Who knows, maybe he sent him. Or you want, when the president is delegating duties to deputy president, to inform Sifuna, the Secretary General of ODM, that today I'm sending William somewhere, that you need to be aware of this. That is not, that should not be actually the basis of argument.
Okay.
And then secondly,
but it happened once when
it has happened.
It has happened.
When he went to the Hague, he told us now we have left the country.
Yes, that is something different, my friend. It's not a harambe that you come to the public. Secondly, you've talked of assassination allegations.
Yes.
And I remember in the opening remarks, Barack Muruka mentioned of, we have actually a history of people being assassinated in this country. We can mention them from JM up to maybe the other just recently, even Mbai was just murdered the other day. So they are there. And you remember on a national media, somebody talked of the deputy president will not be there in 2022. And actually he said it, not once. And people have been saying it. So
in terms of being in the ballot or in terms of being eliminated?
That one now I don't know. But the issue here is when an allocation has been met, you see, it's the responsibility of the investigative agents to ensure that they inform Kenyans what is it all about. What I want to tell you is this. One, I have not had the deputy president complaining openly. So, honestly, I have not seen. And secondly, there is a fact that the cabinet secretaries were in DCI recording the statement. But one thing, the other day I just read on the newspaper that now it has been narrowed down to the communication officers of the deputy president. It's actually the DCI or the anti-corruption, those fellows who are investigating the case, to come and tell Kenyans that we summoned the head of communication, be it the secretary of the director of communication, in the office of the deputy president, and he has refused to come up. Ken, we are making allocations here as if some people stay in heaven or on the moon. What is wrong with you just establishing the facts about it and bring it on the table? But an allocation of assassination on somebody's life should be taken serious.
Especially a person of the deputy president.
A person of a deputy, even just not a person of the deputy president, anybody in this country, life is so precious. And if there was somebody who wanted just to get a political mileage out of it, still the investigation has to be done and somebody must be held accountable for that.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like you gentlemen to weigh in on this, but even let's listen to this, then you come back with your responses.
Ile mambo deputy president ya maneno ya assassination hiyo inakorogwa namna hii. Sisi tumesema ya kwamba every person who has been mentioned on this issue must step aside or be suspended to give us an opportunity to do thorough investigation.
Tumesema wachunguze kabisa, na kama kuna ukweli wale wanahusika waadhibiwe, lakini pia wakigundua kwamba si ukweli, basi wale ambao wametoa haya matamshi pia waadhibiwe.
Barak, you understand the language of your party leader. Please interpret that for us.
Yes, in fact, it doesn't need interpretation. It's very straightforward. We have had assassinations in this country since 1965, when Piogama Pinto was assassinated. This Friday, the 5th of July, it's going to be 50 years since Tom Mboya unfortunately stopped 3 bullets across the road here. We know about JM Kariuki, we know about Uko, we know about Dr. Muthiora, we know about many other people who have been assassinated. And some of these assassinations have been attended to by some of the most terrible civil unrest that this country has witnessed. And when you listen to Governor Sang there, you can see that here is an individual who is already starting to get charged. And I think that there's a sense in which Governor Sang there is almost a metaphor of feelings and emotions elsewhere within those environs. So this is not something to be taken lightly, especially when it comes from the very apogee of leadership in this country.
Okay.
And my party leader is saying this matter must be investigated.
But you also get the feeling that your party leader is saying that there might not be some truth about this.
Yes, and he's saying that if there's no truth in this, then the people who have originated what then essentially must be reduced to a lie must also face the music, because you do not go around crying wolf, wolf, while you have cause to know or to believe that you shouldn't be doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to agree with the sentiments of my 2 colleagues. First of all, as a politician, it would be foolhardy for me to support elimination of politicians by such means, because I would probably be next. We have had a bad history in this country, and we have said that really, we believe that there is no candidate in this country who cannot be beat at the ballot. I think there's also people trying to create an air of invincibility by saying that the only way we will stop Barak from becoming president is by physical elimination. Yet we have faith in Kenyans to actually judge the character of all the people who will be presented as who will present themselves at the ballot and say we want so and so and we don't want so and so. And for me, I'm not going to beat around the bush like you know, these gentlemen are a bit more you know, I don't know, they have certain inhibitions that
Cogitate.
yes, that I do not have. The DCI, the FBI have already handed in their preliminary report. It has already been concluded by the police themselves, not the newspapers, the police themselves, that this was a hoax. That the letter, the basis of which these investigations were launched, was actually generated from the office of the Deputy President, and they are looking for the authors. So it is not premature to conclude that this was a political gimmick to seek publicity from the office of a Deputy President. And we are saying really it is an act of desperation. For us as ODM, we believe that politics a very dangerous act of you know, deception. But for us, we have to put it in context. There are people who are used to such types of politics, blackmail, sending subtle threats to certain people living in certain areas, that things will happen if you don't do such things. For us, we still believe that politics is persuasion. I still have to talk to you and tell you why you will not need harambes from politicians in 2022, because I will have employed all your kids. We will have an economy that is creating jobs and so on and so forth. That we will not depend on Sifuna launching a road for it to be built. The road, and my brother knows, there's a famous road in Bungoma which has been launched end to end. Twice this side, and 2 times over. Brigadier Mijungu. Every time I see him there, he's going to launch the road to Brigadier Mijungu. And yet, Thika Road, for those of us who are here in Nairobi, I don't remember how many times Kibaki launched Thika Road. I think he only came during the groundbreaking and maybe that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, in this particular respect, Ken, it is a very dangerous game to play with national security.
Okay.
Because the import of an assassination, or even an attempt, or even a thought of assassination of a deputy president is something that has national security consequences.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now the question that lingers is, how do you then work with these cabinet secretaries? How do you work with them after this?
Incidentally, it is not the first time that the DP has wanted cabinet secretaries out. And it's not just, this is not the first time. We have had.
That's the translation that you're having.
No.
Yes.
I'm telling you, there are things that I can say that other people refuse to say, or they are afraid to say. We are aware that the pressure has been brought to bear on certain cabinet secretaries simply because their ambitions probably clash with that of the deputy president, or that they are not willing to support his ambitions. These cabinet secretaries are also our friends, and we talk to them. Yeah, they have told us in no uncertain terms that they have had to seek protection from the deputy president. You have seen reports in the media of people in public service having to seek protection from the harassment by the deputy president. So it's not the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does the deputy president go back and work with these CSs in the cabinet?
Every time you raise some sentiments, I get a feeling the allocations coming up as if this government do not have the honor, or somebody is not in charge of it.
Because
you see,
it's our government.
It's our
We are the
government.
owners.
All of us, that's what I was coming to. All of us, we have a civic duty to protect the constitution. And if the government is not working, it's not a responsibility of one person. What I'm actually disagreeing with you guys is actually now carrying all the blame to one person, as if the government is one person. How the deputy is going to discharge duties with his cabinet and the president, that one lies with the leadership of the government. And actually, that is the president himself. He knows each one of them has a duty. And at the end of the day, these things actually surrounds the president himself. Okay. If there is a problem in the executive, actually the president himself must fix that problem. It's none of us. We raise issues the way you are raising now. I'm sure he's listening, or his people are listening, and they will tell him. So, but the issue of just saying now this problem is because of so and so, and is not coming out clearly from the boss. You see, Kibaki, just let me just finish something.
Okay.
Kibaki, when he had the same problem with the government, actually when there were divisions in the government, and he had just lost the referendum, you remember? Kibaki was bold enough. He came to the media and dissolved the whole cabinet. If that is the way to go, so be it. That's what we are saying.
Okay. Barak, break down this for me. Picture Deputy President who is supposed to be leading the cabinet, right there sitting, and we have all these three CSs sitting in the cabinet. How does he work with them? How do you relate with them?
After what has just happened, it's going to be very difficult after these allegations, whether they are true or false. My brother Edwin says that they have already established that they are false. I'd like to give them a bit of benefit of doubt until such a time as someone comes out and categorically states that they are false. Although I'm of the persuasion that they are false, I cannot conceivably, intelligently conceive a situation where 50 people are meeting somewhere to conspire how to kill
a deputy president.
Anyone, how to kill anyone, even how to kill a chicken. You cannot have 50 people sitting together to engage in that kind of discussion. But on the question of then how government is managed, and where I want to agree with my brother Mwambu Mabonga, the responsibility of constituting government reposes with the president. Nowhere in that document which is on this table here, the Constitution, does it say that the deputy president will also contribute a certain portion of people to the government. And we started from a very grotesque perspective, where we have seen that sometimes even the naming of the cabinet seems to take inordinately forever, because the deputy president does not agree with the president. It should never be like that. It's a very bad and dangerous precedent that we seem to have established in this country. We are not the first or the only country where when we go to elections, we have a presidential candidate and we have a running mate. The running mate comes on that ticket, obviously, because he or she brings some value that the presidential candidate on his or her own may not deliver. There are certain demographics that you are going to bring onto that ticket into the presidential election effort. And after you are done, whether your name is Pence, or it's Biden, or it is George Bush Sr., you allow the person who has been elected as president the space to be president. You don't go around making life difficult for him. You don't go around beginning to campaign on day one, and even when he tells you, look, my brother, you are my principal assistant, come help me, let's do these things. When the time comes, we'll come out. So this is where the challenge, therefore, about how this cabinet will go forward rests. And I think I want to agree with Mwambu Mabonga. Let the president do the needful. Okay. If there are some people who have been placed there because they belong to someone, and they're the ones in that cabinet who seem to be faithful to a certain strand, let him get rid of them. He begins by getting rid of those ones. He brings in new people. And if there are people who work with him and for him and who have worked well and who have been falsely accused, he puts his foot down.
Okay. I'd like to talk more about that, Sifuna. I know you want to weigh in. I'd like to take a break, but that's the last break we're taking, because I want to talk about two things. The possibility that the president can contemplate dissolving his cabinet at this time. And obviously, we have to look at what's happening in the Jubilee government in terms of who owes who what. In terms of if the president owes the deputy president votes or his people in 2022. But the deputy president, remember, has said that no one or no community owes me anything. So I'd like to talk about that briefly. But first, let's take a break. And even as we take a break, I'd like us to listen to this.
Here we are seeing a situation where the cabinet may not even be able to make a decision. It may not even be able to sit because of the high level of suspicion and mistrust and animosity.
Reshuffled cabinet. Kwa ajili hii cabinet haitakuwa pamoja tena. Wakati deputy president anasema wengine kwa cabinet wanataka kuua yeye.
Hawa mawaziri kama wanaingilia siasa, futa wote waende nyumbani.
Is the center of
and we are back, the gentleman here. Very heated discussion, but let's bring it back to the studio for you now. And Sifuna, you wanted to comment, and even as you comment about this, just at the back of your mind, I want you also to bring in the aspect of the reason why perhaps the deputy president is doing this is because he's sure at the back of his mind, going with the trend and what he says, there's no way he's going to get the support of his boss.
Now, I don't want to go into that because I was not privy to the arrangements that they entered into, but politics of betrayal is something that we are used to in this country. We have seen it before. As ODM, we have suffered betrayal, and we have also been accused of betrayal from time to time. We want to focus our attention on what is important. And I think the question that my brother Mwambu has asked me, why there seems to be focus on one individual when these promises were being made. I want to be very clear that when it comes to the promises that were made by Jubilee, we actually demand for those promises from Jubilee as a party in power. So, for instance, we still want them to tell us where the 6 stadiums were. I think where the focus shifts to the deputy president is also his attitude and his role. For instance, on the issue of stadiums, everybody knows he's the one who stood at Kasarani to give us timelines on the stadium. He was giving 6 weeks, 3 weeks. And we have to ask him what happened to all these things. The president, when he's saying, let us focus on uniting the country, let's drop down the vitriol, let us focus on the big four, the deputy president is speaking a totally different language. So we raise these issues not because we have anything against him, but we would like there to be some level of commitment to the things that the party leader of Jubilee has identified as important. On the question of the cabinet, it really is a prerogative of the president who he wants to have in cabinet. Of course, the expectation of the ordinary Kenyan is that you have a functional cabinet that delivers the expectations. For us as ODM, anytime we comment on whether the cabinet is dysfunctional, I can't even say whether it should be dissolved or not, because our brothers will start saying, yes, you want to go into government. You remember when the handshake happened, we were shouting ourselves hoarse that we have no intention of going into government. A year and a half down the line, we are not in government. No one is in government, but nobody remembers. But there are several appointments.
Just as even in Kalonzo Musyoka, who was your deputy party leader, was appointed.
Unfortunately, I can only speak for ODM.
Yes.
Yeah. But unfortunately for you.
But
what I'm saying is, we told people that this is not what the handshake was about, but we don't get any credit. So even now, we are saying it is a prerogative of a president to decide who he wants in his cabinet, who he doesn't want. For us as a party, we are focused on forming our own government when the right time comes.
Okay.
Yeah. But from what you said, however, when the government is dysfunctional, it is our duty, our responsibility, whoever we may be, wherever we may be, to tell the president that this is not the government that we expect. You see, we function and operate from different parties, which parties aspire to take power one day through democratic avenues, but still we recognize that there is a government and it is our government, and that the president forms that government on our behalf. And to the extent that that government is dysfunctional, as we've said, we must tell the president that please, this is not it. And if there's somebody who is conditioning you that these are the people you must have in this government, please tell that person no. This is your tea party. It is your dance. Let him wait for his.
Okay. I'm looking forward, Ken, one time, that maybe during our lifetime or in the future, we will stop dealing with symptoms and deal with the real issues affecting this country. Like the things we've actually taken some time to debate about assassination and all those allegations. And I'm glad my friend, whom I have a lot of respect, is a lawyer. And, you know, the FBI were just called the other day, I think on Friday. He has just said that they are through with the report and they have already submitted. And my question is, where is the DCI? Because by now, we should be talking of suspects being arrested. Actually, some of the people who are being mentioned, you always meet them on the streets here. If there are people making such allegation, that's very serious. Secondly, I had another comment. I think it was from Barack that about 50 or 55 people meeting in a room
to conspire.
I don't know how many people are supposed to meet to do that because I have no experience of such plans. But I can assure you,
okay, we can take you through the history
because
of conspiracy.
Just a moment.
Caesar
you've mentioned
to Kennedy.
You've mentioned a few people who have been assassinated in this
Abraham
country.
Lincoln
if you
before.
were to tell us the team that assassinated Tom Mboya and how many were they? So assassination allegations, my friend, is very serious. And that's why we are saying it's now the responsibility of the DCI to come out.
56 people
to come out.
Sitting somewhere.
Because they were called to write a report. Is
talking
that right?
about the caliber of the
So
gun that they will use, talking about whether they should use a machete, talking about the time, talking about where they should find this person. 56 people conspiring to kill.
I wish I just finished what I was saying, Barack. The other day I listened to you and you came out very well because I think it was Mheshimiwa Moses Kuria who said that they were planning, they were doing some meetings for development for Central Kenya. And you raised a very key concern. And you said actually, if it was in Western, now Eugene would meet with who? Those are the things that we need actually to look into. What are the really issues eating this country? When we talk of the cabinet, we've raised our concern as citizens, senior citizens in this country, and the president has heard. We expect him to act. But we cannot come here, Ken, from January to December. We are discussing one thing. Are we moving forward? Are we rotating around?
If nothing
are we
has
giving
happened,
hope to the next generation?
If nothing has happened,
so
we need to continue with the conversation.
We must continue. That's why I'm saying somebody somewhere needs to act.
Okay.
Yes.
And that somebody somewhere should be the person who the buck stops with.
Yes.
You know,
Okay.
Ken, it's not as if the issues have not been framed. For instance, it also occurred to me, the issue that Barack raised, that it is curious for you to say that you are going to have a team of Mount Kenya cabinet secretaries discussing issues to do with development in Mount Kenya. So who is going to do the same thing for communities where probably
They don't have anyone
they don't
in the
have
cabinet.
a single CS in cabinet?
Yeah.
It is an important issue, but if we are really looking at the symptoms and we want to address the root cause, I believe that, for instance, the 9-point MOU that was signed between Raila and the president offers some basis for us to have that conversation.
Okay.
Because inclusivity, shared prosperity, those are the issues that were identified in that MOU. And we're saying, let us have a conversation. But it is usually very disheartening because people reject conversations. They say, we are not going to talk about X and Y. You will see them in the media saying, if this is what it is about, we are not going to talk. You are supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to tell us, given the experience we have had with the current structure of government, with the parliamentary system set up, that the system of government that we have right now, why is it not possible for us to achieve gender parity, for instance, in the Houses of Parliament? What solutions do you prefer? And sometimes this is why even Barack knows. I even criticize some of the leaders, including his party leader. I say, really, as a leader, you cannot say, let us wait for the referendum question, for instance. You should be able to say that for me, this issue of gender has taxed this country. I think we can solve it in the following ways. For me, the problem with devolution is 1, 2, 3, and these are the solutions we want to propose. As a leader, you cannot sit back and say, let us wait for the referendum question. If it is about creating jobs for people, we will say no. I think that is the wrong attitude. Let's have a conversation.
Okay.
All right. Right of reply.
On that, on that specific one, because we want to move on to one more topic, then we can end the show. Yes,
right of reply. And my brother Edwin here knows very well that we have made public pronouncements. In fact, bought space in the papers and said these are the areas that we think need to be addressed.
Okay.
And we have also said that we need to audit the Constitution and find out whether it has served us well, where it has not served us well, and refrain from looking as if we are pushing words and thoughts down people's throats.
Okay.
Yeah? So that in the end we can say these ones are referendable and these ones here are things we can sort out without going to a referendum.
All right. Over the last weekend also, we had pronouncements from one of the leaders, Richard Lesiampe, who was a former principal secretary. And this is what he said. We have some interpretation, but I know you've heard what he said. So let's show this first. So what if I did it? So what if I stole? I stole from our enemies and I did this for you. He has come out today to deny these sentiments. In fact, he said that we do not understand the language he spoke, so we took it out of context. But we got the interpretation right from someone who understands the language. But this is the kind of things that happen with our leadership, and he's not the first person to come out and claim we're doing this on behalf of the people. Let me begin with you on what the former PS said.
I don't understand the language, but with the interpretation there, it's a bit interesting, if indeed that's what he meant. But again, the background, where he comes from, the kind of life, the culture. So,
can he explain?
No, just wait, Baraka. You know, times is good. You know, this country, we are enemies of ourselves. If the day you wake up and know that my friend here is a Kenyan and I owe him a civic duty, it will be very important. Because if you can stand as a leader and say, I have stolen from an enemy, you've stolen from the public, and you're saying on a public media, is it something we need to debate here? Or is it something that right now people should be looking into it? What is it that he has stolen? Because he's bragging, he's now fat.
He's in court. He's in court, actually.
You see,
yes.
You see, such a like things. So let's wait and see the outcome of it. Okay. And actually, we have people who understand that
but
language.
He didn't wait. He didn't wait himself to see the outcome of the court process. Yes. Why should we wait for him?
What I'm saying is, actually, we need to have responsible Kenyans. You and I, we are here. You are saying, that statement did not come from me, Mwambu Mabong. If you were to call him here and say, what did he mean? What do you mean to Kenyans, what you're saying? It's so annoying. And listen, look, he was addressing people who are, I think, starving. People had no cloth even. And he's making that
culture. That's the culture. That's the culture of the Samburu.
Even if it's a culture, you're saying, look at his lifestyle and look at the lifestyle of the people he was
addressing.
That is what I'm talking about, my friend.
Okay.
So let's have responsible leaders in position who can defend the public.
It is quite unfortunate if really he meant what the translation is indicating. I know for a fact that some of these languages, there are a lot of nuances and all sorts of things. If you hear my brother Mwambu speaking Kibukusu, and if you try to translate it, you will have a lot of difficulty. He's one of the best orators when he speaks Kibukusu. But it is quite unfortunate that those sentiments will come to a leader. But perhaps, Ken, it is also a reflection of where we are in terms of attitude, that people really treat public resources with such contempt, and there's this feeling that really Kenyans, there's nothing that you will do. We have known for a long time that some of the lagis we see people peddling around is not really the product of hard work. I liked what the president said in Narok during Madaraka Day, that we need to have a culture that praises the hard work that results in riches, as opposed to just celebrating the big cars and the money being splashed around without really questioning where this money is coming from. It is also reflective of the attitude that public servants have when it comes to public money and public resources. Okay. I think it's a foot-in-mouth opportunity. He probably should have consulted his lawyers before he said it, and I am sure that this retraction, similar as it is to the work attire incident, has come. He has come after his lawyers called him and told him you are sabotaging our entire thesis in court.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Barat.
You know, I had hoped you'd not ask me because Richard Lesiampe is my friend, or at least he used to be my friend. I don't see much of him anymore. But I think this is extremely unfortunate. It's also a reflection of not just the culture. I was asking my brother here to elucidate. You know, in Emmanuel, if you come with a stolen cow, a cow you have raided somewhere, and you want to pay bride wealth for one of our girls, we will send you away with that animal. Elsewhere in this country, like in his culture, it is celebrated. You can actually tell your enemies that we will be coming to fetch the cows. And you will go and fetch the cows and bring them. And people will feel quite happy that you brought the cows. So they are cultural perspectives. But beyond those cultural perspectives at the national level, there's also a culture that has emerged and has gotten entrenched that we can say this is our thief.
Yes.
And if things are stolen, that it's only wrong to the extent that they have been stolen by somebody outside our moral community. Our moralities and our morals are relative to inside populations and external populations. So when an insider steals from outside, and government and anything outside our tribe is seen as another community, then it is quite in order. We must go beyond that culture and be able to see a thief as a thief, regardless of his or her ethnicity.
Right, we have a few minutes on the clock, and I'd like to discuss about something that took some time in Parliament last week. Let's take a listen at this, then we can discuss it.
Tutaingia kwa hizo maduka wanafanyia kazi, sisi tutawatoa, tutawapiga na tutawapeleka airport.
We are here, we must protect. We will not involve ourselves in hate speech. But this house must discuss. Kenyans' top professionals are not getting jobs in Tanzania. And I'll give an example. Vodafone International appointed Sylvia Mulinge as the head of Vodafone Tanzania. And the president of the government of Tanzania refused her.
We strongly condemn any reckless utterances that deviates from this firm position that define us as a nation.
Much as we may want to seek for publicity, for popularity, much as we would want to seek for votes, we must remember that the wider interest of the country overrides any other interest.
All right, wider interest of the country overrides every other interest. And I have to mention at this point that the person who was mentioned by the majority leader in Parliament, she has been trending the whole day. I know succession debate has begun at Safaricom with the demise of Bob Collymore, but she has been one of the topic of discussion today. I like your sentiments on this, xenophobia, possibility of that in the country, and the fact that these leaders are frustrated. I read frustrations. What do you read in the sentiments, for example, when you hear Jaguar or can you speak about that in public?
There is a frustration, although I also do agree that there are decorous ways of dealing with certain things. Because we must remember that two wrongs do not make a right. There is a sense in which our sisters and brothers in Tanzania have perennially mistreated us and exhibited xenophobia. When I was a young man, I remember we lived through many years of a closed border between Kenya and Tanzania, and there were no good reasons that could have justified the closing of that border for a very long time. We know that although we live in the East African community and that there are certain tariff regulations that inform relationship, movement of persons and goods within the community, that Tanzania has tended to be very difficult about them. We know that even when we have attempted to get into international contracts with, say, the European Union, As recently as 2 years ago, it was difficult, almost impossible to have those contracts signed. We know that even here where we are at the National Media Group, if we don't go very far away, at some time in the past you were bundled away from Tanzania, and it had to take a lot of begging and a lot of diplomacy. We know that we have seen our eggs being trampled upon and being burnt, chicken being burnt,
cows being auctioned,
being auctioned, and none other than the president of Tanzania justifying that kind of thing. And it's not beyond some of our more younger and hot-blooded leaders to go off on a tangent like that one, to fly off the handle, so to speak. But I think that these are things that ought to be handled in a more sober and more diplomatic way.
Okay. Yeah, I want to agree largely with what Honorable Baraka said. In fact, as a lawyer, the words that came from my brother Jaguar's mouth are the textbook definition of incitement to violence. We do know that there are complex issues, as Baraka has elucidated, that we are dealing with. The fact that there is a feeling that foreigners are increasingly taking up jobs that Kenyans used to do, and it has been compounded by the fact that Kenyan youth themselves do not have much opportunity. I think we are looking at unemployment in the rates of, is it 60%? It is one of the highest in the world in terms of unemployment, and this feeling that the few opportunities that are there are being taken by foreigners is something that has to be addressed. I remember even when I was on the Council of the Law Society of Kenya, one of the biggest debates is that even though we have these protocols on free movement of labor within the region, there are some countries still where Kenyan lawyers or advocates cannot freely transplant their practices into. We were dealing with situations where we were increasingly issuing practicing certificates to people from Uganda, people from Tanzania, and yet there was no reciprocity from these brother countries. You've had the problem of the Chinese, and I remember Matiang'i taking action of deporting some of them. It is a serious problem. Immigration the world over is a big problem. You remember the big immigration debate in Europe a few years back that even informed very catastrophic decisions such as Brexit. So it is not a simplistic issue, but as Barak says, it requires some sobriety when you're debating, because you should always remember that just like we host foreigners, we also have our brothers and sisters who are working across the border and who have found opportunities there. We do not want to put them at peril, because I think a member of parliament in Tanzania also saying that it is very easy wakipiga watu wetu pia sisi tupige watu wao. And I don't think that is a sort of conversation we would like
with our neighbors.
Absolutely.
Okay. Even as you comment, this is what we have. We have the Toon Side segment. So this is what we have on the cartoon of the day. So even as you comment, I wanted your views specifically on this cartoon. Is just coming up. It's right there. So even as you comment on your point about this. About xenophobia. Don't even look at Tanzania in itself.
No, I'm not even looking at Tanzania per se, but of course most of the issues within our region comes from Tanzania, and I want to agree with my colleagues here. There's a better way of dealing with that. Actually, I was looking for that that clip from Tanzania Member of Parliament. He actually, what Mheshimiwa Chapwa said is exactly what the Member of Parliament in Tanzania said in Parliament. It's exactly, and it's worrying. I wish to bring this to attention of the nation and people in charge of immigration. I was in a meeting in Geneva the other day, and actually when we were discussing some of this terrorism thing, it surprised me that actually somebody just highlighted that most of the people at times who are arrested, they happen to have Kenyan passports. So it's a concern. We need to secure our borders. And there is some sense of hopelessness. You can see actually, Jakwa is representing a constituency, is representing a community. He's talking on behalf of people. That even the small things that Kenyans are supposed to do, they're being done by foreigners. And apparently they're protected in some way. So he's speaking on behalf of the people and many Kenyans who are frustrated.
Yeah.
So maybe the way he put it, that is what is a bit worrying.
Yeah.
But we need to look at it seriously. That is a concern in this country. We need to secure our borders, and we need to restore hope in many Kenyans who are suffering today.
Ken, in fact, just one final comment. I really wish that we would all agree that as a country we need to focus on these issues. It is extremely heartbreaking that Kenyan youth have lost hope so much. You saw the incident at Eka Hotel, that an advertisement of just 5 vacancies attracts a crowd. You would think there's a political rally there. That Kenyans have gotten to a place where they're so desperate. People are hiding in wheel wells of aircraft taking off from JKIA to try and find a better life somewhere else. So when you see us talking very painfully that we really need to stop all this noise about who needs to become president, please let us focus on the things that we promised our youth before. Okay. The million jobs that we promised, we want to see them, and stop this obsession with our political opponents or perceived future political opponents. Okay.
Even as we end, I'd like to give you an opportunity each, because Bob Collymore was cremated this morning, yeah. And it's been a sad thing for the country, the business community, and he worked, he's a global citizen. So even as we end, I'd like to give you an opportunity each, just to share with us what you remember about Bob, if you do.
Well, I think Bob Collymore epitomizes the very best that could come out of corporate management. He's run over the past close to 1 decade what is clearly the most successful blue chip company in the country and in the region, and running side by side with doing good work for the shareholders has been the corporate social responsibility, which has been felt virtually everywhere in the country. And you have seen that he's been able to blend the simple and the complex, from the boardrooms to the villages to the slums, mingling with simple, ordinary people. And I think in a manner that is very genuine. You know, you can tell when somebody pretends. Like if you stop in the street to buy roast maize that you're not quite persuaded about eating. It's not that kind of thing that you saw with Bob Collymore. He was very down to earth, and he will be missed terribly. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Okay, and the succession debate, there's a lot of things to weigh in this. There is the interest of the majority shareholders in Safaricom, the Vodafone PLC. There's the interest of the government, probably give it to a Kenyan. There's an exclusive interview with one of the government officials. And there's the interest of Safaricom itself. Would you have something to say about the succession? You feel it's too early for that?
Yeah, usually I would feel that it was kind of too early. But I would also, of course you understand, normally we don't, where we come from, start talking about we stepping in somebody's shoes that quickly. It is seen as something not good at all. But beyond that, I think the board of management at Safaricom has told us that they knew that this was coming, and we have seen footage that gives us cause to believe that Bob Collymore himself had come to peace with himself and made peace with this God he knew he was going. And perhaps they have been thinking about that, and therefore one would hope that there would be smooth transition.
Okay.
Yeah, I got opportunity to send my condolences. I actually was on a show when the news broke, but of course I also take this opportunity to condole with his family, his loved ones, everyone at Safaricom. I feel like we as a party also need to make clear that even when we have differences or opinions on how corporates would have done things differently, it doesn't mean that we had any personal differences or vendetta against anybody working at Safaricom. So that some of these things that I'm seeing on social media are totally unfounded. We wish that his family is comforted. I think he was a very brave man. I suspect I might have met him maybe just once. I didn't know him.
Okay.
But death is scary. To your common or usual human being, death is very scary. Many of us do not think about our exit. We like to think that we will be here forever and we live as such. But really that is how you live your life, because it is something that is granted. All of us at some point must depart. So that we should be thankful for every day, which is why we insist sometimes, Ken, that we really shouldn't talk about tomorrow or 2022. All we pray is for God to give us life. On the question of succession,
daily bread.
Yes.
Not our 2022 bread.
Yes. On the question of succession, I must say the debate has been quite interesting. And I've been left asking myself certain questions. Of course, on the one hand, there is a feeling that really Kenya has the requisite talent to be able to just do just about any job. We have seen even Kenyans in very high positions outside the country running big organizations and corporations out there. But I have to ask myself, have we as Kenyans ruined our own reputations in the workplace?
Okay.
Have we as young people ruined our own reputations in workplaces that people feel they do not trust us? You see the sentiments that came out in the public about young leaders after what Javwa said. There was a time when the president appointed my uncle, Mudi Awori, to some board, and when there was all this furor, he asked the question, or he said that you young people, when you're given opportunity to serve, all you do there is to go and steal and you ruin everything.
And yet we've never seen a young person in court.
Exactly. No, they have been. They have been. In fairness, they have been. But you see, which is why we say every day, like for me, I realize that as a young person, in any position of responsibility you are given now, like now I've been elected vice chair, if I ruin it, if I go about it in the wrong way, it is not Sifuna.
You ruin it for
is
the
the
young
young people. And probably this is the curse that we are all suffering, that probably we have ruined our reputation as Kenyans. We cannot be trusted with certain responsibilities. Okay. I believe it's generalization.
It is
but
not,
the people,
the people look at the corporates, the corporations, the state-owned companies that we have brought down in this country.
I think, Barack, it's individuals. I don't think it is
It should
fair.
be collective, yes. Blanket
to say that,
condemnation of the young
let's
people.
look for a white person
It can't be
or
one
a foreigner to
individual.
be able to do
You
this.
look at Kenatco, you look at Kenya National Assurance, Kenya Trading Corporation, you look at Kikomi, you look at Kenya Titex Mills. You could go on.
You could mention several examples.
Yeah, the evidence stacks up, but all I'm saying is...
But really, the majority are still good people too.
Absolutely.
Those are
I believe so.
minorities.
I believe
yes.
so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mheshimiwa.
Well, I have not had a close interaction with Bob, but there is one thing I've learned about him. I think looking at his history, he's a gentleman by excellence. And as my brother says here, he's very courageous because he was open enough to come to the public and actually tell them what he's suffering. He sort of was well prepared to face his maker. So he's a great man in my assessment. And again, I looked at his humble background, very humble. This is a man who, one time I actually listened to him on Chief Koinange Live, and he said one of the most thing he looks at young people when he's interviewing them, he looks at the talents. So he's a man who had really a lot of respect in talents. Okay. That does not mean by any chance trying to demean education, qualification or anything, but at least we need to come to a point whereby we can develop talent. We have talented young people across this nation. Something else I want to assume, because it didn't come out of him, he has been at the helm of Safaricom when it was down. Now it's almost 500% profit. I want to believe, because one of the qualifications of a leader is actually to prepare a successor. And actually that is what is lacking. Being a role model to many, because people have really talked well of him, I want to believe that he may, in his own wisdom, have raised maybe some people within the organization or even beyond, so that to take over from actually him. Actually, that is what lacking. Wherever you are, my friends, my colleagues, try to raise young people. that when your time of exit comes, you need to give way to fresh ideas. So that is that's a clear communication, my friend. We are not just talking. You need to give room to that. So that is a gentleman, a courageous man. I want to assume that the things that are actually talking about succession in the board, he must be part of it if he was
must have given an input.
And lastly, we pray for his family, and above all, may his soul rest in eternal peace.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I love the conversation this evening. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts in everything we have been able to discuss this evening. And let's do the final part of the show. And after our discussion tonight, only one conclusion that I can make, and make sense: the center can no longer hold, because things have fallen apart. A few years ago, the current predicament was unthinkable. Now we know that 2 political outfits have been registered ahead of 2022. It's no longer in doubt that the 2 outfits could play a crucial role in the 2022 election, but they are not the subject of our time bar today. Let's take you back to August of 2016. President Kenyatta announced that all political parties allied to Jubilee coalition will dissolve or fold up by September 12th. Now, on that particular month, September, political parties leadership agreed to join President Uhuru Kenyatta and launch one of the political vehicles that he was going to use, that Jubilee Party, and eventually it was used and he recaptured power with it. In the same month, that September, the opposition leader Raila Odinga was planning to form a super coalition with 5 parties, and it happened. Now, less than a month later, 13 parties allied to the Jubilee coalition wound up in readiness for the Jubilee merger. It was to be named the Jubilee Alliance Party to beat legal hurdles. They had to do that. And 3 days later, a new party was launched. It pledged fairness and that the party will accommodate all and there will be no Godfather syndrome in the party. 3 years later, the cracks in this party is evident. So evident that there is an official Jubilee A and Jubilee B, SPLM. That's what he said. IG,
Jubilee IO.
And Jubilee IO. Better still, they're named Tanga Tanga and the other one is named as Kieleweke. A good place to end tonight's show. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Such a good conversation tonight. And hope to see you soon. Sifuna?
Yeah.
All right.
And tell Wamshomba.
No, it's a disappointment she didn't come. Right. It's a disappointment. Yes. It's disappointing Wamshomba wasn't here. She should have been here.
She has given reason.
No, she's not given a reason. She just apologized.
You don't apologize at the 11th hour.